Arman never intended to go on a blind date. He barely had time to sleep, let alone sit in some fancy restaurant pretending he remembered how adult conversations worked. A single dad with a 5-year-old daughter who refused to sleep without hearing 2 bedtime stories, he lived in a constant cycle of school runs, overtime shifts at the repair shop, and late-night laundry. Dating simply didn't fit anywhere in his life, but his best friend, Hamad, wouldn't stop insisting. Just one evening, Hamad argued while leaning across the counter at the auto shop. "You've done enough for everyone else. Let someone do something for you." Arman snorted. "A blind date is not something for me. It's torture." "Bro, please." The girl's friend begged me. "You're the only single guy I know who's not a walking red flag." Arman didn't want to, but eventually, exhaustion and Hamad's never-ending sighing broke him down. He reluctantly agreed. "Fine. 1 hour. If she talks about astrology or crypto, I'm leaving." He expected something awkward. A polite conversation, some forced smiles. What he didn't expect, what his mind still couldn't process hours later, was the woman he saw the moment he stepped into the restaurant. She was sitting alone at a corner table by the window, dressed simply but so elegantly it made him self-conscious about the grease stain on his sleeve. Her posture was confident, composed, with an unreadable calmness that made her seem unreachable. Like someone who inhabited an entirely different world. The kind of woman who had options, success, control, everything. Arman felt he didn't. He only learned her name after he approached hesitantly and she stood up to greet him with a soft smile. "Mira," she said, extending her hand. "You must be Arman." Her voice had this gentle strength, like she was someone who made life decisions without blinking. He nearly forgot to shake her hand. They talked. Well, she talked while he tried not to embarrass himself. She asked about his daughter, Aliyah, and his face lit up in a way he didn't realize until she smiled and said, "You really love being a father." Her smile wasn't the polite, blind date kind. It was warm. Genuine. He asked about her work, expecting something like teaching or architecture. "Nothing too extravagant. I run a company," she said simply. "A company," he repeated, "too, actually." He almost choked on his water. What kind of world was he sitting in? She didn't brag, didn't flaunt anything. She spoke with humility, telling him about long nights, challenges, moments she doubted herself, all things he thought only he struggled with. When she laughed at his stories, it wasn't forced. And when he spoke about losing his wife years ago, she didn't pity him, she listened. Really listened. By the time dessert arrived, Arman realized he hadn't felt this comfortable, this seen, in a long time. The only problem, someone like her didn't belong in his messy, unpredictable life, but the way she looked at him, it made him question everything he believed about himself. The evening ended with her saying something he didn't expect. "Arman, if you're open to it, I'd like to see you again." His heart stuttered, and for a moment he didn't breathe. Because no one had chosen him, not like this, in years, but reality hit him like a cold wave. "Mira, you seem amazing." "Really? But my life is complicated. My daughter is my whole world. I barely have time for myself, much less date someone like." "Someone like what?" she asked softly. "Someone like you." Instead of looking offended, she gave a patient, almost tender smile. "I didn't ask you to be perfect. I asked if you wanted to see me again." He didn't have an answer. He walked away feeling torn, like something beautiful was being offered to him, yet he wasn't worthy of holding it. But fate had other plans, because the next morning, he found Mira sitting cross-legged on the floor of his shop, laughing as his daughter Aliyah proudly showed her a drawing of a flying cat. Apparently, Hamad had invited her without telling him, and in that moment, watching Mira talk to his daughter as if she'd known her forever, Arman felt something shift inside him, something that scared him as much as it warmed him. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't out of reach, maybe she was walking toward him. Chapter 2. After that day, Mira became a quiet, steady presence in their lives. Not intrusive, not forceful, just gently present, like sunlight filtering into a room you didn't realize had been dark. She visited the shop occasionally, bringing coffee and asking about cars in a curious, unpretentious way. She invited him and Aliyah to a weekend fair, and he hesitated before agreeing, but ended up watching in disbelief as Mira patiently waited in line with Aliyah for face painting, smiling like she had nowhere else in the world to be. Arman tried to keep his heart guarded. He reminded himself the difference between their worlds. But every time he saw Mira kneeling to tie Aliyah's shoelaces, or laughing at his terrible jokes, or telling him stories of her failures instead of her achievements, his walls cracked a little more. Still, the fear never left him. One evening, after an exhausting day, he sat with her on a park bench while Aaliyah chased pigeons nearby. Mira looked at him, noticing he'd been quiet. "What's bothering you?" she asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. "You ever feel like you're standing in the wrong place? Like life handed you something too big, too good, and you're just waiting to mess it up?" She folded her hands, thinking for a moment. "Every day," she said softly. "When I started my company, I was terrified I wasn't enough. That someone would discover I didn't actually know what I was doing." He frowned. "You? Afraid?" She smiled. "Everyone is afraid, Arman. Some of us just hide it better." He looked down. "I don't want to bring chaos into your life. You deserve someone who can give you the world. Not someone who's trying to survive every month." She turned slightly, facing him. "Maybe," she said gently, "I don't want someone to give me the world. Maybe I just want someone who makes the world feel honest." He didn't expect the tears that burned behind his eyes. No one had ever said something like that to him. The moment was perfect, which was why it scared him. So when Mira leaned her head gently against his shoulder, he froze. Not because he didn't want it, he wanted it more than he'd wanted anything in years, but because letting her in meant risking heartbreak for him, and for his little girl. But then Aaliyah ran to them, holding Myra's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Mira lifted her into her lap with such tenderness that Arman's last line of defense quietly collapsed. From that day, he allowed himself to hope. Yet every story has a challenge, and theirs came in the form of Myra's world colliding. With his point one afternoon, a group of Myra's board members saw Arman pick her up from work. His clothes dirty from the repair shop, his old truck coughing smoke, Aaliyah giggling in the back seat. They didn't say anything to his face, but he caught their expressions: disapproval, judgment, amusement. Later that week, Mira overheard them whispering words like "not a good image, not suitable for her status, he'll hold her back." Arman wanted to disappear. He didn't tell Mira, but she already knew, and he expected her to let him go. Instead, she walked into her meeting the next morning, stood before the board, and with calm fire in her voice, said, "Oh, my personal life is not up for committee approval. If anyone has a problem with the man I am seeing, the problem is theirs, not mine." Word spread. People talked. Rumors buzzed. Arman expected her to regret it. But she didn't. One evening she came to see him and said quietly, "I choose you, Arman. Not your job. Not your truck. You." He didn't know how to respond except by pulling her into the safest, most honest embrace he'd ever felt himself give. Months passed, and the connection they built didn't fade, it deepened. Mira became part of Aaliyah's bedtime stories, part of their breakfasts, part of the laughter in their home. And Arman became someone who believed, slowly, painfully, that he wasn't a burden, but a man worthy of being loved. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low and golden light filled their small living room, Mira knelt beside Aaliyah, brushing her hair gently. "Do you like having me around?" she asked softly. Aaliyah nodded enthusiastically. "You're my favorite," she giggled. Myra's eyes lifted to Arman's, full of warmth, and in that moment, he realized something breathtakingly simple. This wasn't just a love story, it was a story of healing, of choosing hope, of believing in second chances. Arman took Myra's hand, steady, sure, no longer afraid, and whispered, "Stay. Stay with us. For good." She smiled, eyes glistening. "I was already planning to." And just like that, the man who thought a blind date was a mistake discovered the truth. Sometimes the best things arrive exactly when you stop expecting them, and sometimes, a single moment of saying yes can change every chapter of your life.